When I was brought out to the actual project in 1968, I was informed that the project was actually a carry-on from the Philadelphia experiment. I was actually given the final report for the Philadelphia experiment to review, and it actually listed the Cameron brothers, Ed and Duncan Cameron, as the Navy liaison officers.
Could it be there is something to the stories after all? The evidence is all circumstantial, but is it compelling enough to warrant further investigation?
At Montauk, we had a system that we called the Montauk chair, which was actually a lounge chair with a group of coils around it that through quantum electromagnetic processes actually picked up the thoughts, put it into a group of receivers designed and built by Nikola Tesla in the 30s, which are even today very unique. This then was digitized and put into a computer system where the thoughts are actually decoded and read, and then from there it went to the radar transmitter. The radar tower was sent out into the electromagnetic background in order to affect the thoughts of other people. This is not so far-fetched because today the Air Force is using head movement, eye movements, electroencephalogram readings in order to control the flight of some of the very advanced airplanes.
The Montauk Project technology created portals in time and space through which people traveled. Initially, the test subjects were considered disposable, and many of them were lost. Later on, they developed a core group known as the Montauk Boys. They traveled through time and space effortlessly. However, the tragedy was that less than 1% of them survived the experimentation.
But all of this was going on in the 60s and 70s. Dr. John von Neumann, who is generally considered the father of the modern computer, supposedly died in the 50s. Was there a computer technology capable of these remarkable feats back then? Who could have designed such sophisticated hardware and software?
It was alien technology. We simply didn't have the theory, but we had the technical expertise and capability to build the hardware to their specifications. Our government has been working with aliens for years.
Einstein's unified field theory was an attempt to demonstrate that all fundamental forces could be shown in a single basic field. It has been a dream of physicists for most of the 20th century, but it is only recently that the world's physicists have found a theory that is crazy enough to meet the requirement. It's called the superstring theory, and it's far too complicated for most of us to understand. So why bring it up? Only because it is the concept of a unified field that makes things like hyperspace and time travel even remotely possible. And there are those who believe the government did not abandon the research when they closed Montauk.
I don't believe the final chapter on Montauk has yet been written. When I was there in 1992, I saw evidence that the base had been reactivated. New coax cable runs, new power transformers have been put into the power substations, and the radar tower that used to be wide open now has a steel door with double padlocks. And we found other evidence that shows that the base was being reactivated. There were new entrances to the underground with special interlocked doors.
In the past 15 years, I've discovered that I was essentially raised by the government. Perhaps I should say government-designated parents. And I want to tell you there's a lot more going on with these government projects than anybody cares to even think about. It's difficult to explain. It's even difficult for me to comprehend, and I'm living it. I have very clear memories of several different timelines. For example, I was an aircraft and engine mechanic in the Air Force working on jet engines. But when I tried to contact my old Air Force buddies, people that I worked with and partied with, they didn't even know me. I have memories of Montauk, and I believe that Montauk was never really shut down.
Is Al Bielek the sole surviving member of a markedly successful but incredibly tragic experiment?
If Montauk was shut down in 1983, did the government just abandon space-time research? Or will the ghost of the Eldridge come back to haunt us again in the 21st century? There's still a huge void between what we know and what we'd like to know. That the Montauk Laboratory existed is not in dispute. It is in fact still there today. The project itself, however, appears to have been shut down in the mid-1980s. Could that have merely been a ruse to give them time to rebuild and update the facility?
Is it possible that the Phoenix Project, under some other guise and in some other place, is still going on? Are terms like hyperspace, the space-time continuum, and the time travel paradox seriously discussed in clandestine scientific circles, or are they just the stuff science fiction is made of?
You can be sure there's a lot of research taking place in the field of quantum physics and parallel realities and hyperspace. We're not talking about length, width, height, and time here. We're talking about actual parallel reference range, parallel realities, different dimensions, different universes to us. There is data and theories that suggest we have possibly 21 realities or reference frames wrapped up in the existence we know. There is nothing more important to quantum physicists than studying how all these different reference frames interrelate to each other.
But doesn't this go far beyond the idea of radar or even optical invisibility? Was the Philadelphia experiment a research accident, or was it the means to an end?
Later on, Duncan and some of the others saw the project as pure evil and wanted to destroy it. But Dr. von Neumann, who, by the way, did not die in the 50s, wanted to keep it. He thought that it was a valuable research tool that would be essential in combating what he saw as very serious threats to the security of the United States in the future.
But research into what, and at what cost? Could it be that the Eldridge and its crew were not the only U.S. military personnel to run afoul of the Philadelphia experiment? Encounters has recently learned that investigators now believe yet another experiment was launched using the same technology. But this time, instead of naval vessels, the subject of the experiment was aircraft. For over 40 years, the disappearance of Flight 19 from a Fort Lauderdale air base in the mid-1940s has been written off as just another of the many Bermuda Triangle anomalies. But now a German historian and investigative journalist, Michael Preisinger, has uncovered information never before published in the U.S., suggesting a different explanation.